Thank you for answering my
You
questions.
bet.
Senator Cook, for what purpose?
To ask a few questions of the author.
Senator Hagenbauch, do you yield for questions?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
President.
Cook, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator. Are you aware, Senator Hagenbauch, of when these got an added level of scrutiny? When these short barrel firearms became more heavily scrutinized by the federal government?
My understanding was during the days of Prohibition back in the 1920s, 30s, someplace in there.
Yep, it was in the 1930s, 1934, because they were more concealable than rifles, more powerful than handguns, and because police officers were afraid of criminals who had short-barreled firearms in their hands. Are you aware that the opinions of the courts have upheld that federal law multiple times through basically the last century?
Not specifically aware of those facts. I don't necessarily know if they really pertain all that much. And my point being is that it's legal in Texas to own one if you register it and pay $200, and that won't change if we pass this bill.
Right, and in United States v. Miller in 1939, the courts held that it did not have a reasonable relationship to the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia, and then multiple court opinions since then have labeled them dangerous and unusual weapons with no legitimate use in the hands of private individuals linked to criminal activity typically possessed, they are not typically possessed by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. Have you read all these quotes?
I'm aware of them, but there's also facts like this, that a pistol, if you add a brace, a stabilizing brace, is considered categorized in this category, which is just for a person who happens to own a pistol, want to be able to hold it more stably. It can't be for people who are handicapped. There's other reasons than way back then on why you may have a weapon that's of this length. There's a variety of reasons why that's the case. So that's why I think part of the reason why it's legal to own one if you register and pay $200. And as again, as I said, that wouldn't change if we pass this bill.
You know, I appreciate you saying earlier that it's antiquated. What I see as antiquated is that the fee wasn't indexed to inflation, because it should be worth over more than $4,000 today and was designed to deter people from purchasing them. Senator Hagenbauch, do you consider yourself somebody who's motivated by outcomes or by ideology?
Probably some of both, I would say.
What's the outcome that you're hoping to achieve from this bill?
Sure. Primarily just to get rid of an unnecessary redundant law. Also to make sure that people who own, say, a pistol, they want to put a stabilizing brace on, are able to do that.
I'm talking about your bill.
Pardon me?
I was asking about your bill, not others' content, just for the record. So even if this bill passes and it were to result in more people having short barrel firearms, more people having more powerful and more concealable weapons that we know have been used to murder Texas children, if that results in a higher death rate, is this bill still worth it?
Well, I had my staff looking at that. We couldn't find any facts that would show that short barrel firearms have been linked to any kind of increase in crime. And there's still, a pistol is still very legal, and it's, we're talking about even more concealable. So that doesn't, I don't see where these weapons are, more dangerous than a pistol or any other weapon.
Okay, so did you know that the medical and forensic impact of short barrel shotguns, can you name any of the kind of immediate medical outcomes of a short range shot from one of these guns?
Not specifically, but I do know any kind of shotgun has, I can know a little bit about, without going into details here, the sort of the spread of the projectiles, those kind of things.
Have you ever seen a gun wound in person up close before? Yes, likely, right? Have you interacted with gun wounds in person up close?
I've seen some before, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so, we know these things cause extensive tissue destruction. They require amputation. They're incompatible with survival. These are not wounds that anybody can survive. So what is the motivation for peeling back even just the slightest hurdle for somebody just going out and buying one of these?
Well, I think what you're talking about is it could apply to a lot of different kinds of firearms, depending no matter what the length is. and those, of course, are legal. And again, this bill doesn't change the fact that they're already illegal. They're already legal in Texas as long as you register with the federal government and pay a fee. And that's still the case. It's still required, if this bill passes, to do the same thing. You have to get a background check. You have to register with ATF. You have to pay $200 fee. That remains the same.
Is your concern over the health outcomes of Texas children or your concern over gun owners' fees bigger?
Pardon me, say that again?
Are you more concerned about fees that gun owners have to pay or about whether or not kids come home from school every day?
And neither of those had really come into my thought process on this. I'm just telling you the reason being it's a redundant, unnecessary law. I think certainly firearms can be handled safely, and that's obviously a Second Amendment right.
Yeah, lawmakers in the courts for about 100 years have all agreed that an extra hurdle in front of these firearms is pretty important. And I think we all know that the reason that there's a lack of data is because it has been hard for people to get their hands on these, thank God. And that the federal government neglected to research firearm violence for years because of the influence of special interests and lobbyists. So that's why you can't find the data, because luckily, there haven't been as many crimes committed by these because they have been harder to get. And in 2021, there were over 532,000 registered short-barreled rifles in the US. There is a growing interest in these firearms. There is a growing number of mass shootings. And so I just want to ask you one more time, what's the reason that you want to take away this slight roadblock that we've got in front of a really dangerous weapon?
Well, for one thing, I think the increase made just simply because they recategorized a pistol with a stabilizing brace is a short barrel firearm. So that happened, I think, a couple of years ago. So that may be why you see statistically that they have increased. But again, I've said already that you were not making it any harder or less hard for a person to own a short barrel rifle in Texas. That currently they're legal if you register with the ATF and pay a fee. And it'll still be the case if we pass this bill.
If it doesn't make a difference, then why are we writing a bill about it?
I think it's unnecessary, redundant bill that Texas doesn't need to have. It's already in federal code.
Despite 100 years of lawmakers in the courts agreeing that it does need to be there. Thank you for answering my question, Senator Hagenbauch.
You bet.
Senator Menendez, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Question